The house smelled of roasted chicken and fresh bread, the sound of clinking silverware and soft chatter filling the dining room. But Michael didn't notice any of it. His mind was a storm, swirling with frustration he had buried for years. Family. Dinners were always tense, but tonight felt different. Tonight, he could sense it coming, the moment that would make everything impossible to ignore. He glanced at his sister, Vanessa, across the table. She was laughing at something their mother had said. Her hair perfectly styled, her posture confident, the glow of someone who always seemed untouchable. Michael's stomach twisted. He had tried to build his life on honesty, on hard work, on earning his place. But no matter what he did, it always felt like Vanessa was ahead, always praised, always rewarded. Their parents had never hidden their favoritism, but it had never been spoken aloud so bluntly until now. Their mother, Margaret, cleared her throat. The clatter of silverware stopped mid-motion. The sudden quiet felt heavy, almost suffocating. Michael's heart beat faster, a mix of dread and anticipation. He already knew the words that were coming, or at least he feared them, and he hated himself for wanting to hear them anyway. Your sister, Margaret began, her voice measured but carrying weight, has always been the provider. She paused. Her eyes flicked between Michael and Vanessa, lingering on the younger son as if gauging his reaction. The room seemed to shrink, every family member frozen mid-bite, mid-laugh, mid-breath. Michael felt the sting of humiliation before the sentence even finished. The words hit him like a punch. He had tried to ignore Vanessa's subtle manipulations for years, brushed off the comparisons, laughed along when their parents praised her. But hearing it declared at the table so publicly made all the past betrayals sharp, like fresh cuts reopening. His fists clenched under the table. He wanted to shout, to defend himself, to make them see the effort he had poured into his own life, the sacrifices they never acknowledged. But the room was silent, expectant, and he stayed frozen. Vanessa smiled, a faint flicker of pride in her eyes. She didn't need to say anything. The declaration alone spoke volumes. Michael felt a mix of anger and helplessness. It wasn't just the favoritism, it was the way it had been earned at his expense. Every time he failed to be good enough. In the eyes of their parents, Vanessa had been there, excelling, outshining him effortlessly. And now, tonight, it was being celebrated openly, like he had been invisible all along. Memories flashed through Michael's mind, each one fueling the fire of betrayal. He remembered the job he had worked tirelessly to secure, only for Vanessa to swoop in with connections he didn't have, receiving praise for his work. He remembered money he had lent her in secret, never to be returned, brushed off with excuses. He remembered their parents comparing their achievements at every turn, subtly or not so subtly, creating a hierarchy where he always felt second place. The anger wasn't just about recognition, it was about respect, about dignity, about the quiet years where his efforts were dismissed while Vanessa's success was amplified. He realized that the pause in his mother's sentence gave the moment weight, suspense, like everyone at the table was holding their breath, waiting for a conclusion. That pause didn't help Michael. It only made the sting sharper, the unfairness more unbearable. He looked around the table. Their father was nodding slightly, a small, approving smile on his face. His younger sister, Lily, seemed confused, sensing tension, but not understanding it. The family dynamic that had always been fraught with subtle competition now lay exposed, raw and undeniable. Michael felt the heat of humiliation creeping into his cheeks. He wanted to disappear, to retreat, but his pride wouldn't allow it. For a moment, He wondered if speaking up would make any difference. Could he argue that he had worked just as hard, that he deserved recognition? Could he make them see the way Vanessa had undermined him over the years, the sly comments, the manipulations that painted him as incapable, unambitious, or simply less than? He opened his mouth, then closed it. Words would not fix this. Words would not undo the pattern that had been reinforced for years. Instead, a cold resolve began to settle over him, sharper and quieter than anger and need to balance the scales. If words wouldn't give him justice, maybe action would. Maybe. It was time to plan, to think carefully, to make Vanessa see that the world wasn't tilted in her favor without consequence. Michael realized that this was more than a family argument. This was about reclaiming his dignity, his sense of self, and making sure the person who had quietly hurt him for years finally understood the cost of her actions. As the dinner continued, Michael felt detached from the conversation. He laughed when prompted, nodded at the right moments, but his mind was elsewhere, plotting, calculating. The desire for revenge was not sudden. It had been simmering under the surface for years, and tonight, Margaret's announcement had poured fuel on the fire. He analyzed Vanessa carefully, noticing her habits, her small movements, the confidence she carried so easily. Every laugh, every self-assured glance, every subtle brag suddenly became part of a pattern he could study, understand, and perhaps, eventually, exploit. The fire inside him was no longer just anger, it was strategy. He would not act impulsively. He would wait, plan, and ensure that when the time came, the outcome would be undeniable. The betrayal felt personal, yet he understood it was also systemic. Their mother's announcement was a symbol of years of favoritism and unacknowledged effort. Michael knew he could not erase the past, that he could influence the future. And that thought, more than any words, filled him with a quiet, steady determination. As the family continued with their meal, Michael's eyes remained on Vanessa, watching, analyzing, and imagining possibilities. The room was full of warmth, laughter, and chatter, but he felt a chill of anticipation. Something was about to change, and he would make sure it did. Tonight had planted the seed. The coming days would be the soil for it to grow. Michael's mind was clear now, focused, relentless. The injustice of years of dismissal had been spoken aloud, and he would not let it go unchallenged. He didn't yet know exactly how, but he knew one thing: Vanessa had underestimated him for the last time. And in that realization, the first stirrings of revenge took root. The fire that Margaret's words had sparked in Michael didn't die. It grew. In the days following the dinner, he felt its heat in every corner of his life. At work, he performed flawlessly, yet every task felt like a rehearsal for something bigger, a preparation for the moment when he could right the imbalance he had suffered for years. Each phone call, each meeting, each project was measured, every detail noted, as though he was mapping a battlefield. At home, the tension between him and Vanessa was subtle but palpable. She laughed as usual, oblivious to the storm brewing behind. His calm exterior, every word she spoke, every anecdote about her success, every boast about her career and accomplishments felt like a tiny blade slicing into him. Michael could feel the resentment and longing for justice building, knotting in his chest like a living thing. He didn't hate her, not truly. He envied her, and he despised what she represented. The acknowledgement, the respect, the power he had been denied. Michael began to notice patterns, the small habits that defined Vanessa's life. She was meticulous, predictable in some ways, careless in others. He kept mental notes. When she left her phone unattended, when she bragged about investments or business contacts, when she made decisions that showed overconfidence. He didn't plan to expose her in front of the family, not yet. The thrill for him lay in strategy, in the quiet power of preparation. Revenge, he realized, was not a single act, it was patience, intelligence, and timing. But even as he planned, doubt crept in. He knew he could destroy her reputation if he wanted to. He could reveal the truth about her manipulations, her subtle undermining, and she would fall like a tower of glass. The thought of seeing her stunned, humiliated, exposed, tempted him deeply. It was intoxicating. Yet alongside the desire, guilt gnawed at him. What would this do to him? Could he carry the satisfaction if he became the very person he despised someone, willing to crush others for personal satisfaction? His nights were sleepless, haunted by memories and what-ifs. He remembered the nights he had cried alone, frustrated by his lack of recognition, watching Vanessa succeed effortlessly. He remembered the moments she had twisted situations to her advantage, leaving him questioning himself, doubting his own abilities. And he remembered the family dinner, Margaret's words still echoing, "Your sister has always been the provider." The pause after the announcement had felt like a challenge, a test, and Michael had accepted it, silently, in his mind. During the day, he moved among friends and colleagues with ease, but his mind was elsewhere. He imagined scenarios small, ones at first, teasing, testing boundaries, probing Vanessa's confidence. What if he subtly undermined her, without anyone noticing? What if he revealed her flaws in a controlled way? He didn't want destruction for its own sake. He wanted equilibrium, a chance to show that he was not invisible, that he could command. Attention, respect, and authority too. Michael's internal conflict intensified. He questioned himself constantly. Was revenge justice, or was it cruelty disguised as fairness? He pictured the aftermath. Vanessa stunned, hurt, perhaps even angry. Would he feel victorious, or would the bitterness of his own actions haunt him? The desire for retribution battled with the voice of morality, whispering that restraint might be the stronger, nobler path. And yet, the fire of betrayal burned hotter than any quiet conscience could soothe. He began documenting everything. Small slips, careless remarks, opportunities Vanessa had taken that should have been shared or mutually acknowledged. He analyzed the family dynamics, recalling every moment he had been overshadowed or dismissed. Each memory was a piece of the puzzle, each slight a clue to her weaknesses. Michael realized that revenge was not about impulsive retaliation. It was about careful observation, timing, and precision. But planning revenge wasn't simple. Every time he imagined executing a move, he imagined the consequences. Would this break the family apart? Would it alienate him from people he cared about? Could he live with the knowledge that he had crossed a line, that he had sacrificed his own peace for satisfaction that might be fleeting? These questions plagued him as much as the memory of betrayal itself. Michael tried to distract himself: exercise, work, reading, but nothing quelled the fire. It lurked in the background of every thought, sharp and persistent. He found himself imagining confrontations, not just with Vanessa, but with their parents. He wanted acknowledgement, an apology, recognition of the years he had been dismissed. But he knew such demands were impossible. The world rarely handed justice on a silver platter. He had to create it himself. The planning grew more detailed. He noted times when Vanessa was distracted, when she let her guard down. He considered subtle actions revealing truths at the right moment, or demonstrating his own success in ways she couldn't ignore. Each plan had to be precise. He couldn't risk being careless. The thrill of strategizing became almost addictive. Michael realized he was playing a game where patience and observation were his greatest weapons. Even as he planned, Michael wrestled with his conscience. He remembered who he was before this desire for revenge had taken hold. A man who valued honesty, integrity, and self-respect. Could he carry out his plans without losing himself? The thought of becoming manipulative, calculating, and cold scared him. Yet the fire of betrayal refused to die down. It demanded action, and he knew he could not ignore it forever. Michael began to test himself, small steps at first. He corrected Vanessa subtly in conversations, highlighted facts she had overlooked, and made careful observations that could later become evidence of her recklessness or arrogance. Each small victory boosted his confidence, showing him that he could influence situations without overt confrontation. The thrill was intoxicating, but he reminded himself that the real moment, the decisive move, was still to come. At night, lying in bed, Michael's mind was a battlefield. He imagined scenarios over and over, playing out every possible outcome. Would Vanessa notice his subtle maneuvers? Would she fight back? Would the family see the truth if he revealed it? The tension was constant, the stakes personal and high. Michael realized that revenge was not merely about satisfying anger. It was about reclaiming control over his life, over the narrative that had always positioned him as second best. As the days passed, Michael's plan began to take shape, forming a structure as intricate as a chess game. He felt a sense of clarity he hadn't known in years. The betrayal had ignited something deeper than anger. It had awakened his ability to observe, analyze, and strategize with precision. And with that clarity came a deeper understanding. The moment of truth was approaching, and when it arrived, he had to decide not just how, but if he would act. In quiet moments, he caught glimpses of Vanessa's unsuspecting world. The laughter, the pride, the unawareness of the storm gathering in her brother's mind. Michael's resolve hardened. This was not about destroying her. It was about leveling the field, about proving to himself that he was not powerless, that he could claim recognition, dignity, and control. The fire of betrayal had become a tool, focused and sharp, ready to be wielded, but only when the time was right. Michael knew one thing for certain. He would not act recklessly. He would plan, observe, and wait for the perfect moment. The revenge he imagined was not about cruelty. It was about equilibrium, about justice, and about finally stepping out of Vanessa's shadow. The fire that had consumed him since the family dinner now guided him, sharpening his focus and sharpening his mind for the coming battle. And somewhere deep inside, beyond the fire and the planning, Michael felt a quiet, unwavering certainty. When the time came, he would be ready. The day of the family gathering arrived with an almost electric tension. Michael felt it in the air, in the way Vanessa moved through the house with her usual confidence, unaware of the storm brewing behind his calm exterior. The house smelled faintly of flowers and candles, the kind of subtle touches Vanessa adored to show her control over every detail. She was radiant, laughing as she greeted relatives, her charm effortless, her pride shining. Michael observed quietly from the corner, noting every gesture, every careless glance. He had waited for this moment for weeks, rehearsing in his mind every scenario, every possible outcome. His plan was precise, deliberate, calculated. He could expose Vanessa, reveal the truth she had hidden, show the family the subtle ways she had manipulated situations to her advantage. He could topple the pedestal she had built for herself, and finally, the world would acknowledge him. But as he watched her laugh, a strange hesitation crept in. He noticed the ease with which she interacted with their parents, the genuine warmth in her eyes when she spoke to their younger sister. This wasn't just arrogance or manipulation. It was also care, pride, and confidence that had been nurtured over years. Michael felt a flicker of doubt. Was this who he wanted to hurt? Could he really destroy someone so entwined in the family dynamic? Someone who was also, in her own way, vulnerable and human. He shook the thoughts away. No. This wasn't about cruelty. It was about balance, about recognition, about reclaiming the dignity that had been denied to him. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The plan was in motion. He had arranged subtle exposures, hints that would make their parents question, friends notice, and Vanessa herself uneasy. Every piece of information had been gathered carefully, every moment rehearsed. The fire inside him roared, focused and controlled. As he prepared to act as the evening progressed, Michael followed Vanessa's movements with surgical precision. He noted her laughter, her interactions, the small slips of arrogance she made without realizing. Each slip was fuel, a piece of evidence to support the narrative he had crafted in his mind. He imagined the moment when she would finally notice. The flicker of panic. The realization that someone had been watching, waiting, planning. His pulse quickened at the thought. But then something unexpected happened. Vanessa's younger sister Lily approached him quietly, her eyes wide. "Michael," she whispered, "don't you think you're overthinking this?" The simplicity of her question struck him harder than any confrontation could. She had no idea of his plans, no understanding of the anger simmering inside him, yet she spoke with clarity that cut through his obsession. He hesitated, caught off guard in that pause. Michael realized the danger of acting. Revenge, no matter how justified, had consequences that extended beyond the target. Family gatherings were about connection, shared history, and bonds that were fragile and easily broken. One wrong move, and he could unravel years of relationships, create lasting damage, and for what? Temporary satisfaction? A fleeting sense of power? The thought unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Vanessa laughed nearby, completely unaware of the tension gripping Michael. He studied her for a long moment, really studied her. She wasn't perfect, far from it. She made mistakes, had her blind spots, but she was also genuine in her care for the family, in her dedication to her work, and in the way she carried herself. Michael's anger, which had seemed so righteous, now felt heavier, burdened with the complexity of reality. He thought of all the scenarios he had imagined, exposing her publicly, undermining her in front of the family, watching her scramble as her carefully crafted image cracked. Each scenario had seemed satisfying in his mind, a form of justice for years of being dismissed. But in real life, he realized, satisfaction was not guaranteed. The risk of regret, of self-loathing, of irreversible damage loomed far larger than the fleeting pleasure of revenge. As he stood there, Michael felt a strange clarity. The fire of betrayal was still there, but it had transformed. It was no longer just about anger. It was about choice, about control, about proving to himself that he could rise above the instinct to destroy. He didn't have to act impulsively. He could step back, observe, and reclaim his power in ways that didn't hurt anyone, including himself. The moment of truth came unexpectedly. Vanessa, smiling, turned to him with a question that required attention, and for a heartbeat. Michael imagined blurting out everything: the evidence, the manipulations, the hidden slights. He imagined the shock, the chaos, the family reeling from the revelations. His pulse spiked, the adrenaline rushing as his mind raced with the imagined outcomes. But he didn't. He took a slow, measured breath and smiled instead. He answered her question calmly, effortlessly, without revealing anything. He engaged in conversation, laughed when appropriate, and moved through the gathering with composure. The tension inside him began to ease, replaced by a quiet sense of control. He realized he didn't need to expose her to reclaim his dignity. He already possessed it. By choosing restraint, Vanessa, completely unaware, continued with her evening, radiant and confident. Michael observed a subtle satisfaction washing over him, not from her discomfort, but from his own decision to rise above the desire for vengeance. He had imagined the thrill of retribution, but now he understood a deeper truth. True power was not in hurting others, but in mastering oneself. In choosing integrity over impulse. As the night wore on, Michael's focus shifted from revenge to reflection. He thought about the years of resentment, the subtle undermining, the feelings of invisibility, and realized that much of the pain had been sustained by his own fixation on perceived slights. By letting go, he wasn't conceding defeat, he was reclaiming his life, his peace, his freedom. The weight of anger lifted, replaced by clarity and resolve. In that moment, he understood that revenge is rarely clean or satisfying. It's messy, painful, and often leaves scars on the person seeking it. Michael had been prepared to act, to strike, to balance the scales. But the act itself, he realized, was not necessary. The real victory lay in self-control, in choosing a path that upheld his values, in proving to himself that he was stronger than the urge to destroy. By the end of the evening, Michael felt a quiet triumph. Vanessa remained blissfully unaware. The family laughter continued, and he had navigated the gathering without losing himself to anger. He had faced the ultimate test, the moment when the desire for revenge was strongest, and chosen restraint. The fire of betrayal still existed, but it was now tempered, focused, and under his control. Walking home that night, Michael reflected on the lessons learned. Revenge, he realized, could be seductive, offering the illusion of justice and satisfaction. But it rarely delivered true peace. Instead, it trapped the seeker in cycles of obsession and regret. By choosing a different path, Michael had not only preserved his integrity, but had also gained clarity about who he wanted to be, independent of his sister's actions. And in that clarity, he found something more powerful than revenge. Freedom. Freedom from resentment, from the need for external validation, from the endless comparison that had haunted him for years. He had confronted the fire within him and emerged not as a destroyer, but as someone capable of patience, reflection, and wisdom. Michael knew that the battle was not over. Life would continue to challenge him, to test his resolve, and to present new opportunities for anger or betrayal. But he had faced the defining moment of choice and had acted in a way that preserved his self-respect. That night, as he drifted into sleep, he felt a quiet strength, a knowledge that the most powerful revenge is sometimes the one you don't take, and the truest victory is the peace you create for yourself.